Emma had always believed her life was as ordinary as it could be, a quiet, steady rhythm that offered comfort and safety. She worked as a book editor at a small publishing house in Seattle, loved her cozy apartment with its large window overlooking the rainy streets, spent most evenings curled up with tea and novels. Friends often joked that she lived in a world of words rather than reality. And she didn't mind it was peaceful, predictable, safe. Yet deep inside, Emma carried a quiet longing she hardly admitted even to herself. She yearned for something more, a spark to break through the monotony, a connection that could shake her careful walls. She hadn't expected that spark to arrive on a rainy Thursday in the least remarkable place, a small, nearly empty cafe on Pine Street. The cafe was warm, the air rich with the scent of coffee and pastry, and the soft hum of conversations mixed with the clinking of cups. Outside, rain fell steadily, blurring the city lights into golden streaks against wet sidewalks. Emma chose her usual corner seat by the window, hoping to lose herself in a new manuscript she had brought along, a stack of pages she needed to review before tomorrow. She liked the sound of the rain hitting the glass. It gave her a strange sense of companionship, as if the city itself was listening. She didn't notice him at first, not the man who came in hurriedly, shaking off raindrops from his jacket, carrying a laptop bag that had clearly seen better days, and a folder of papers that teetered dangerously in his grasp. Their first encounter was so subtle, so ordinary that it could have been overlooked by anyone else. Emma, sipping her tea, noticed him stumble slightly, a paper slipping from his folder. Without thinking, she reached out instinctively and steadied the stack before it fell to the floor. Their fingers brushed for a fleeting second, a touch so small, so accidental, that it might have been nothing. Yet, for Emma, it felt like the world shifted just a little. A pulse of electricity that traveled through her hand into her chest. The cafe seemed quieter for a moment, as though the rain itself had paused to watch. Lucas, the man with the papers, smiled at her with gratitude, a warm, effortless gesture that made Emma feel oddly self-conscious, yet comforted. "Thank you," he said, his voice low and easy, carrying the kind of calm that felt rare in a city full of rushing strangers. "I didn't realize I was juggling half the office." His humor was gentle, unpretentious, and Emma found herself smiling, a flush creeping to her cheeks. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt a flutter of something unfamiliar, not excitement, exactly, but curiosity, anticipation, and an unspoken recognition. What followed was casual conversation. At first scattered and polite, discussing the rain, the strange charm of small cafes, and the challenge of managing too many papers on a workday. Emma noticed how attentive Lucas was. The way his brown eyes seemed to focus fully on her words, making her feel seen in a way she rarely experienced. He wasn't just polite. He was genuinely interested, leaning in slightly as he spoke, listening, laughing at her small jokes, adding his own with warmth and subtle charm. Time, which often felt rigid and structured in her life, suddenly bent and stretched. Minutes became hours unnoticed. There was something magnetic about him. Not just in appearance, though he had an easy, approachable attractiveness, but in the quiet confidence he carried. He didn't dominate the conversation, didn't overwhelm with stories about himself. He was simply present, aware, making Emma feel like her thoughts mattered. It was rare, that kind of attention, and Emma felt both exhilarated and anxious. She reminded herself not to hope too much, to keep her heart cautious. But with every glance, every shared laugh, the walls she had carefully built around herself began to feel fragile. Rain continued to streak the windows, though now it was a soft drizzle, reflecting the warm amber lights of the cafe. Emma found herself telling him things she usually reserved for her journal. Stories about her favorite childhood books, the little habits that gave her comfort, even the quiet loneliness that sometimes settled over her on evenings like this. Lucas didn't judge. He simply listened and responded thoughtfully, as if he were carefully threading his presence around hers, making her feel safe without ever pushing. It was disarming. And Emma realized that the momentary brush of their fingers had become a bridge she didn't know she was ready to cross, but already wanted to. Lucas checked his watch, realizing the afternoon had passed in what seemed like seconds. "I should probably get going," he said reluctantly, though his voice carried a tone that suggested he wasn't entirely willing to leave. Emma nodded, understanding perfectly, though a part of her wished time could stretch indefinitely. When he stood, he brushed past her hand again, this time deliberately, lightly resting his fingers against hers for a heartbeat longer than necessary. The contact was subtle, but it left a lingering warmth that spread through her chest. A reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures carry the greatest weight. As he walked away, Emma remained at her table, staring at the empty space he had occupied, the aroma of his coffee still lingering faintly in the air. Her heart raced, a mix of excitement and fear. She couldn't understand why a single touch, a single shared moment, had felt so significant. But she knew in a deep, unspoken way that her life had shifted. The steady predictability she had clung to for so long felt suddenly fragile. And yet it was a fragility she welcomed. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Emma went home, her apartment quiet and familiar, yet she felt different. She brewed herself a cup of chamomile tea, thinking back on the afternoon, replaying Lucas's smile, the warmth in his eyes, the gentle way he had made her feel understood. She realized that she had been craving something she didn't fully understand: connection, spontaneity, the thrill of unpredictability, and that small moment in the cafe had offered a taste of it. Sleep was elusive that night, her mind wandering over every detail, every word, every brush of hands, and she knew she had crossed a threshold she couldn't uncross. Over the next days, Emma found herself scanning the streets and cafes she frequented, half hoping, half expecting to see him again. She couldn't explain why, but a quiet anticipation began to thread itself through her days. Even work seemed different, less rigid, as if the world had suddenly expanded in ways she hadn't imagined. Memories of Lucas's presence lingered, small but persistent, like the gentle echo of music in an empty room. Every time she thought of him, her heart fluttered in a new rhythm, uncertain and alive, full of the possibilities that come with change. She replayed that single touch countless times in her mind, the brush of fingers, brief but deliberate, carrying a weight she couldn't rationalize. Emma, who had always lived within the safety of routines, began to realize that perhaps life had a way of rewriting itself in moments too subtle to notice at first. The spark, she understood now, didn't require grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It existed in the smallest acts: a smile, a glance, a touch that lingered in memory. By the end of the week, Emma could no longer ignore the truth. That small moment in the cafe had awakened something in her, a longing she could no longer name or contain. She didn't know what would come of it, didn't know if Lucas would reappear or if their paths would remain separate. All she knew was that her world felt wider, brighter, and suddenly uncertain in ways that were exhilarating and terrifying at once. And so she waited, not passively, but with a quiet readiness, aware that sometimes life's most profound changes arrived unexpectedly, quietly, without warning. A single touch had rewritten her life, and though she didn't yet understand the full story, she felt the first chapters beginning to unfold, soft, delicate, and charged with possibility. The days following that rainy Thursday became a quiet whirlwind for Emma. She moved through her routine with an almost mechanical precision, editing manuscripts, answering emails, brewing her evening tea. But inside, her mind replayed every detail of the cafe encounter with Lucas: his smile, the warmth of his presence, the gentle brush of fingers. It all lingered like the echo of a melody she couldn't quite forget. Even the ordinary moments of her day carried traces of anticipation, a quiet tension that made her heart beat faster than usual. She found herself scanning crowded streets, glancing at cafes she passed, wondering if, by some twist of fate, she might catch a glimpse of him again. It was irrational, yet unavoidable. The spark had embedded itself deeply, and Emma realized that life, once so structured and predictable, had begun to pulse with an unpredictable rhythm. A week later, that rhythm became reality. She was browsing her favorite bookstore on the corner of 3rd Avenue, flipping through a stack of novels when she sensed someone near her. Glancing up, her breath caught Lucas was standing there, holding a book she had been searching for, the same warm smile playing across his face. "Emma," he said softly, almost as if speaking her name aloud made it more real. The sound of it made her chest tighten, and a small involuntary smile spread across her face. For a moment, neither of them spoke, and the hum of the bookstore, the rustle of pages, and the distant chatter faded into a quiet bubble that contained just the two of them. "I was hoping I'd see you again," Lucas admitted, his voice calm, yet carrying a quiet intensity that made her heart flutter. "Seems like fate has a strange sense of humor." Emma felt the familiar warmth rise in her chest, a mixture of excitement and vulnerability she hadn't felt in years. She nodded, words caught somewhere between her mind and her heart. Their conversation picked up effortlessly, a continuation of the connection from that rainy Thursday, as though no time had passed at all. They spoke about books, favorite authors, the comfort of rainy Seattle afternoons, and little details of their lives they had never shared with anyone else. Every word, every glance seemed to build a fragile bridge between them, one that Emma could feel growing stronger with each passing moment, as days turned into evenings filled with long walks, long quiet streets, and small coffee dates. Emma began to understand the depth of her own longing. Lucas had a way of seeing her, not just the composed, careful exterior she presented to the world, but the vulnerable, tender heart beneath it. He noticed the small things, the way her fingers lingered on a book's spine, the subtle tilt of her head when she laughed, the quiet way she observed life around her. Each gesture he made, each patient, attentive glance reinforced the unspoken bond forming between them. Emma realized that the spark of their first touch was no accident. It was the beginning of a connection neither of them could have predicted. A connection that challenged her caution and invited her to embrace a life less ordinary. Yet, the thrill of these new experiences was accompanied by a gentle fear. Emma had always been careful, protective of her heart, and the intensity of her feelings both thrilled and terrified her. She worried about letting herself hope, about the possibility of disappointment, about the fragility of something so sudden, so unexpected. And still, she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward Lucas. The magnetic energy that seemed to flow between them whenever they were together. It was as if every glance, every word, every laugh was a thread weaving them closer. A tapestry of connection she could neither resist nor fully comprehend. One evening, as they walked along the waterfront with the sun sinking low in the sky, painting the horizon in shades of pink and gold, Lucas reached for her hand. It was a gentle gesture, deliberate but unassuming, as though he had been holding back, waiting for the perfect moment to bridge the final distance. Emma felt the familiar spark, the same warmth from their first encounter, now stronger, more profound, undeniable. Her heart raced, her pulse quickened, and a quiet joy settled over her. The touch was simple, yet it carried the weight of every unspoken thought, every lingering glance, every shared laugh. It was a language of its own, one that spoke of possibility, trust, and the fragile, beautiful beginning of love. "I don't know what this is," Lucas admitted, his voice soft and honest, "but I feel like my life changed the moment I met you." Emma looked at him, her chest full of hope, fear, and an almost overwhelming sense of wonder. "I feel it too," she whispered, words that felt both terrifying and exhilarating to say aloud. The confession was gentle, delicate. Yet it solidified something neither had been able to name before. The realization that life had shifted irreversibly, that the ordinary world they had known had been replaced by a space where connection, intimacy, and vulnerability could exist without shame or hesitation. The weeks that followed were filled with moments both ordinary and extraordinary. They shared quiet dinners in small, local restaurants, exploring neighborhoods neither had known before. They discovered shared passions, books, music, the subtle art of noticing small details in the world, and through these shared experiences, they built a foundation of trust, understanding, and affection. Each day offered a new layer, a new thread in the delicate tapestry of their connection. And Emma found herself falling in ways she had never expected, in ways that were thrilling, tender, and transformative. Even mundane activities became charged with meaning. Walking through a crowded farmer's market, sharing an umbrella during an unexpected drizzle, laughing over a spilled coffee, or exchanging small, teasing remarks about trivial matters. Each interaction deepened their bond. Emma marveled at how someone could so completely shift the contours of her world through small gestures, through attentiveness, through the quiet insistence of presence. Every shared glance, every gentle touch was a testament to the delicate power of connection. And Emma began to understand that love was not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was quiet, patient, and profoundly simple. Yet, as with any story worth telling, challenges arose. Emma's cautious nature, long ingrained, sometimes pulled her back into her shell. Doubts crept in. Was she moving too fast? Could someone really see her so completely without judgment? Did Lucas feel the same intensity she did, or was it only in her imagination? These questions hovered in the corners of her mind, small shadows that tested her courage and resolve. And yet, Lucas remained patient, gentle, attentive, never pushing, never overwhelming. Always present in ways that made Emma feel both safe and cherished. The dynamic between them was delicate, balanced, and emotionally rich. A dance of vulnerability and trust that drew Emma further into a world she had previously only glimpsed in her daydreams. One crisp evening, they attended a small literary event at a local bookstore. Surrounded by books, soft music, and the quiet murmur of conversation, they stood close together, their hands brushing occasionally, each touch sending familiar sparks through Emma's chest. Lucas leaned in, whispering an observation about a favorite author, and Emma felt an undeniable sense of connection. The quiet thrill of intimacy without urgency, the comfort of being fully seen and understood. The evening ended with a walk under a canopy of streetlights, rain having returned in a soft drizzle, and Emma realized that every shared experience, every small gesture had created a rhythm between them. A language beyond words, a story they were writing together without fully realizing it. As autumn deepened, the days grew shorter and the air crisper. Yet the warmth between Emma and Lucas seemed to grow. They shared quiet moments in coffee shops, explored art galleries, and wandered through neighborhoods bathed in golden light. Emma felt a profound shift within herself, her heart. Once cautious and guarded, now moved freely. Vulnerable, yet strengthened by the steady, caring presence of Lucas. Every shared smile, every deliberate touch, every word of kindness or encouragement became a thread weaving them closer. A tapestry of connection that seemed both fragile and enduring. Emma began to understand that love. Real love was not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about noticing, being present, and responding with care. It was about quiet moments that carried immense weight. A gentle hand on her shoulder when she felt anxious, a smile across a crowded room, a shared laugh over something insignificant yet profoundly human. Lucas had taught her, without intention, the transformative power of presence, the beauty of vulnerability, and the quiet exhilaration of letting someone truly into her life. One evening, sitting by the waterfront as the sun set in a riot of colors, Emma felt a sense of completeness she had never known. Lucas's hand rested in hers, firm yet gentle. And the familiarity of their connection brought both comfort and a thrilling sense of possibility. "I never expected this," she said softly, voice trembling slightly, "to feel like this." Lucas squeezed her hand, his smile tender, his gaze steady. "Neither did I," he admitted. "But now that it's here, I can't imagine my life without it." The words, simple yet profound, echoed in Emma's heart, reaffirming the quiet truth she had known for weeks, that a single touch, a fleeting moment, had rewritten the trajectory of her life, opening doors she hadn't even known existed.